All right, guys, we're back again. CABAL. What's up? What is up, my friends? What is up, my friends? Greeting on this fine Insurrection Eve, gentlemen. I'm just gonna post this on Twitter. Just gonna make sure that we're rolling live. Apologies for the delay. I'm gonna be honest. The reason for the delay is very, very simple. It's very, very simple. I was trying to catch up on all the events. I've had a very, very busy weekend, and I and I'm seeing there's like a Chinese coup going on. I got to get this stuff prepped. I got to get myself a little bit, you know, prepared for the COVID cabal. You know what I'm saying? I can't come into COVID cabal completely blind here. So what is up? What is up? COVID cabal. Let's go, COVID cabal. We got ourselves a pre-aurat here tonight. This is the gem pre-aurat. In case you guys don't know, it's all backwards. Remember here, pre-aurat. If you guys do not know, is the gem red wine of Catalonia, which is Barcelona area, basically. So if you are a Catalan nationalist, pre-aurat is your claim to fame. If I understand this correctly, if I recall correctly, pre-aurat is in a little almost circular valley, and it has a very good microclimate, which is why it makes everything so good. COVID Cabal, let's go. Drop a comment in the chat. Let's go, Jose. Bosh. Let's go, Mr. Branford. We got this going, guys. We got COVID Cabal going. Let's check out this pre-aurat, though, before we get going with this. Rich and delicious, as a pre-aurat should be. This is going to be an extra spicy COVID Cabal because I gotta go fast paced, but I also, I had a little bit of wine before I even came on this, just a little bit, but I had a little family, in Poland, they have family meals at lunchtime. So we had a bottle already. So I'm already warmed up. This pre-aurat is just take it up there a little notch here for us here at COVID Cabal. First thing I got to talk about here, of course, is what's going on in Minnesota. There's a lot of things going on. I want to cover it, but I got to prioritize the real juicy stuff. And I got to be honest, I actually found out about some of the stuff that was happening from last night, because there was we had some family over, and there's a younger family member, extended family, and she was talking about, and she was not of this herself, but she was saying, like, so what's going on in America? It's getting crazy over there. I'm like, yeah, in a good way. Spike the tension up in the conversation a little bit. And she's like, well, people getting killed. And I didn't actually know about the situation with this guy. And we're gonna talk. I don't even know his name anymore. I saw it on an image. I don't care what his name is. People like this don't deserve to have their names even mentioned, and we're gonna talk about that in a moment. But she was talking about how people on like TikTok, they're saying all this messed up stuff, and I'm like, look, these illegal immigrants are like cancer on the country. Like, you have people who come in, first off, they're breaking the law just even by being in the country. But putting aside that, they're on welfare, they're not assimilating, they're not paying taxes. Even if you have like one of these three categories not being true, the odds are that they're going to fall into one of them. And when you're talking about the Somali population in particular, we're talking about the stupidest fucking people in the world. The stupidest, most inbred, disgusting, scammy people in the entire fucking world. Yeah, I want them out of my country. I don't care what happens to them. And if you are protesting on behalf of them, you're a fucking retard. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about this fucking retard. I've seen the videos here. They had a phone and they murdered him. You know what? You want to know something? They murdered Ashley Babbitt. They fucking murdered Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt protesting in the Capitol building without a weapon, doing nothing but climbing through a window that she even didn't break herself. I mean, this whole fucking thing, they shot her. Point blank. No provocation. They shot her. That guy's given a hero medal. Whereas you have someone go to a rally, not a political rally about a contested election, but about something that is the fucking law. This is the fucking law. If you are an illegal immigrant in this country, you broke the fucking law. Do you understand that? So when people came here, I'm going to let this guy Moongazer say it. These people do not process that this man woke up and intentionally dressed like a militia movie character and intentionally armed himself and intentionally went to a federal operation and intentionally interfered with it and intentionally resisted arrest and intentionally pulled his gun. Leftists cannot comprehend agency and therefore believe instead that he is literally spawned on the sidewalk and through a series of fascist coincidences, he was executed for exercising his constitutional right to do whatever he wants without consequences. I could not say this better myself. I do not give a fuck that this person is dead. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And if you're on the right and you are getting like shaky hands, you getting fucking shaky hands? Go fucking sit down and get the fuck out of the way. This faggot. Look at this faggot right here. Dave Smith. I'm a comic. Okay? I don't care if this guy's on the right. You're a faggot. Dave Smith, you are a faggot. Everybody watching this right now needs to internalize this. Whether you're Martyr Made, who's struggling over what his extended network is saying about ICE. I'm an immigration restrictionist. If you're an immigration restrictionist, then shut the fuck up about every fucking thing that you've said in the rest of this fucking passage. I believe that we have the right to remove any and all people who entered our country illegally. Then shut the fuck up. ICE is out of fucking control. No, they're not out of fucking control. Biden let into this country 10 to 30 million people, you dumb fucking faggot. Did you actually think that when they are deliberately going out and trying to provoke incidences, that there is not going to be anything that happens? These people want incidences, you dumb fuck. That's the whole fucking game. Create an incident and a martyr, and then make faggots like Dave Smith feel bad so people lose their nerve. We're not losing our nerve. This is existential. You cannot act like this. Grow a fucking spine. Grow a fucking spine. I'm telling you guys, I'm done with it. I am done with people like him who complained for a year when nothing was being done, and then when something is done, they can't handle the fucking heat. That's why nothing was done. Do you understand this? Does anybody really get it? Every single person who said, why wasn't Trump doing things? Why wasn't Trump taking action? He wasn't taking action because of faggots like this, Dave Smith. This guy's a faggot. And he wasn't taking action because of him. People like him on the right who support MAGA, Joe Rogan, faggot. These people are unable to handle action. So Trump has to be a little fucking babysitter for their emotions. It has to create the most perfect conditions that could possibly happen for him to take action. He has to show you that the entire fucking state of Minnesota is involved in mass scale, multi-$100 billion fraud. And that the governor is involved with it. And then he has to show that the Democratic Party is organizing literal insurrectionist groups. And this guy is still a faggot. That's how bad it is. That's how difficult this is to do if you're a president. You have to walk around these people's emotions. These are the most pathetic people in the world. They are not men. He's going to go up on stage and he's going to make a bunch of jokes, but he's a faggot. I'm going to say it again. This video is going to get delisted. I've said it too many times. You get away with like once or twice. I've said it too many times, but it's true. What other word can you call someone like him? Whatever other word can you say for a guy, for a man who says, we need to stop, we need to restrict immigration, we need to, solve the immigration problem. Oh, you arrested him too hard. Get the fuck out of here. Not having it. Not down with it. Not interested in it. You're weak. Go sit down. Go sit down in the fucking chair and let the men do the work. There are men who want to fix this country. They want to fix this country, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to fix this country. And if you are willing to get gaslit like a woman, that when they deliberately provoke us, you're going to get all butthurt about it. You can't handle it. It's time to sit down, time to shut the fuck up, okay? This is an operation. It's not even a domestic operation. Look at this stuff. Centers. I don't know how true this stuff is. I don't know if this is like, I'm going to give Tom the benefit of the doubt here. That's not how we spell center in America, though. These are the flyers going around. This is when we get to the big thing here. Right? What is going on with Greenland and Canada? Now, I don't know if it's actually true that Greenland is a base of operations for Canada, literally. This is the thing I have to say. If I take a step back, if I remove the fact that we're in the 21st century, and I think in classic geopolitics, it's absolutely obvious that America wanted Greenland in order to protect us from Europe, but also cut off Canada from Europe. That would be the natural geographic, geopolitical argument. And when I was studying geopolitics in college, doing security studies, etc., that is what we would always look for. It's always about geography. Geography's destiny. Okay? But then you take a step back and you're like, you gotta be kidding me. Ship can come off of, it doesn't have to go past Greenland. How are you actually going to move an army through Greenland into Canada? This is a little far-fetched, don't you think, Pat? Aren't you going a little bit too far with it? Which is why I don't like to hang my hat on this argument. But I'll tell you this. Canada was created, or let's say it was built after America seceded. It was built to be a bulwark against the United States. It was built to be a point of infiltration and antagonism into the United States. Britain's big, let me put it this way. Russia's big enemy was Britain. It's always been Britain. Afghanistan was a buffer between the British Empire and Russia. And do you know the reason that Russia sold Alaska to the United States? This is like historical lore, but do you know why they sold to the United States? They sold to the United States because they were worried that they couldn't protect it adequately. And if they didn't protect it, it would go to Britain. And then Russia would be surrounded on multiple sides by Britain. That's very interesting, isn't it? In the end of the day, Russia wanted America to have Alaska. They wanted that sale. So let's look at it now. Alaska, Greenland, Southern United States, Canada's getting boxed in. Now, I can try to diminish this argument about geography, but the reality is that you can see it very clearly that Canada actually is boxed in now. We don't know what the outcome is of the Greenland stuff. We don't know to what extent Trump's opening salvo is going to actually end up with us getting getting Greenland. I think it will. I've heard some rumors, obviously, that we're just going to get some certain parcels of land or bases or mineral rights. It doesn't matter to me. I trust that Trump understands what's important, what isn't. The name of the game in the 21st century, it's not physically incorporating territories. So for instance, is this it right here? Do I have it here? It's not that. I don't even know if I actually added it in the end. So if I don't see it real quick, don't worry about it. Yeah, it's not on one of these. I know it anyway. Within 15, the new government in Venezuela was given 15 minutes apparently to comply or die. We don't need to make Venezuela part of the United States. I mean, I think that Canada over time has the potential to be part of the United States, but we don't need Canada to be part of the United States. I've had a hard time with this because I'm autistic. I'm autistic. Okay? And what I mean by that is that I want the map to look good. I want Russia to have, it's part of Ukraine, Belarus, part of Kazakhstan, whatever. I want to have its clear borders, right? I want that. I don't want border gore. I want everything looking good. Russia's got to get the Baltics because they have to connect Kaliningrad. It's not good. It's map gore. Okay? But the reality is that this is not how, practically speaking, the world works. There's no benefit for America to bring in Canada literally into the United States as states when so much of the Canadian population are subversive. But that doesn't mean that you just let Canada have their own destiny, because they don't have their own destiny anyway. They're a pawn for the British crown and our deep state enemies. So what you need to do is you need to bring Canada into some sort of free association where they are economically dependent, and ultimately, maybe in time, they can become integrated as states in the United States. But it's not really important, because so long as you have a government running Canada that is a puppet, there's no reason to do anything else. That's what Russia is doing going to do with Belarus in the future, maybe. Maybe Belarus is going to get to the stage after Lukashenko of pure annexation. But Ukraine will have a puppet, right? The whole Kazakhstan's coup in 2022, that was about securing Russia's government interests in Kazakhstan, okay? So this is what I want to say with all of this stuff. Right now, Canada is an enemy. By the way, did you know, I didn't know how bad it was. I knew it was bad, but sometimes I see these graphs and I forget just how bad it is. Canada's GDP growth over the past decade has been, what is it? 1%? 1 or 2% over the past decade? America's grown 20% over that time period. I think it's actually less than 1%. I think it was like 0.5% Canada grew over the past decade, which, when you take into consideration inflation, means that Canada substantially declined in revenue and value. So this is a very important point here. This is a very important thing for us all to really anchor into and understand, is that Canada, by the nature of its position geographically, is required for US security, and it's being used simply as, it's being made to be poor because they're using the trade surplus to buy treasuries so that then they can dump them, which you see they're doing right now. It's part of the currency war battle. Canada's a pawn. They're happy to use it and squeeze it. So what are we doing? We are now encouraging the independence of Alberta. And apparently, we have the first stages of this referendum coming. Now, Alberta's the crown jewel. You get Alberta, you get the most valuable part of Canada. But you get Alberta, you get Saskatchewan, the territories north of them are ripe for the taking, okay? Northwest Territories, none of it. Yukon Territory, they have no defense mechanisms. So then you have a situation where you have Manitoba and British Columbia. Manitoba is not important. Whether it goes or doesn't go doesn't matter, really. It's very cut off, though, at that point geographically from the rest of Eastern Canada, because even though it borders Ontario, if you know the geography, it's all the Canadian Shield. So you have like Thunder Bay, Ontario, very isolated on Lake Superior, and it's a really, really big gap between the main population centers of Ontario. Like all of Northern Ontario is like 1 million people, which is the population of Manitoba. So, Northern Ontario almost should be its own province because it has nothing to do with the sort of London, Ontario to, Ottawa corridor. All right. But whether Manitoba goes or not doesn't really matter. You just have British Columbia, which is the problem is basically just Vancouver. It's no different than the problem in Seattle. So what I'm trying to say is that Alberta goes, they lose all their money. Saskatchewan follows quick. The rest of the house of cards in the West collapses. So, and you can see that they're in checkmate mode with this because they're scrambling to do a trade deal with China, and Trump says, we're just going to tariff the fuck out of you. You try doing that, we're just going to tariff the fuck out of you. This is different, actually. And it's not going to happen for you. Carney immediately backs down. They don't have the leverage because we're using our trade power. They just don't have the leverage to do any of these things. So Canada actually is surrounded right now. So this is all important. This is all good. But let's talk about, let's move this conversation to, I think, what is very interesting right now, which is China. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I know exactly what is going on in China right now. I don't think anybody does. Anybody tells you they know exactly what is going on in China. This is happening in real time. But let's just do a little debrief on the basics here. So the CCB officially announced the initiation of investigations into Zhang Zhujiao, Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, and Liu Zhenli, Chief of the Joint Staff Department. Their crime, serious violations of discipline and law. Of the 7 members of the Central Military Commission, only 2 now remain, including Xi Jinping himself and newly promoted Zhang Shengmin. A purge on the scale is unprecedented. What do you think this means to China and the world? So this is to give you a visual of this, okay? So look at this. This is the Central Military Commission. These are all the people who have been removed. So Xi Jinping's so-called self-revolution purge has in reality dismantled the CCP's military command and leadership structures at every level. 2026 will be the weakest year for the CCP's party army. PLA is paper dragon, consisting mainly of generals who got promoted through corruption. The Chinese military has not fought a real war for many years. And Zhang Zhujiao, if I'm saying this correctly, I'm going to be impressed. I feel like I'm saying this correctly, but I bet I'm not saying it correctly. And Liu Zhenli were the last genuinely combat experienced commanders. Their removal is a severe blow not only to the PLA's military capacity, but to the regime itself. Now, I do want to say this, though, okay? So here's where we get to the COVID cabal, read between the lines stuff. So if you understand our general theory of geopolitics, what do we understand? We understand that it's not sufficient to look at surface relationships between countries, in that this is really a matter of cabal versus not cabal. And every country has cabal in it and not cabal in it. Some countries are more captured than others. So the thesis that we've had going back at least since season 1.5 of Cobra Cabal, but I think it was in season 1 too, was that Russia is mostly just anti-cabal. Now, that doesn't mean that there are still not cabal elements that are secret. I happen to think that the hard right in Russia, given the political situation in Russia, is more likely to be where the cabal will place their influence. So Alexei Navalny, Alexei Navalny actually was very, very far right, and he became more of a neoliberal icon. Putin killed him eventually. Prigozhin, that seems like it was a CIA operation with Prigozhin. Putin killed him later on, right? Russia is pretty tightened up. I think that they went so directly against Russia because not just because of proximity and various other historic reasons we've talked about, because Russia is about as clear cut of an enemy as the cabal has. It has the most minimal compromising elements within it. Doesn't mean Russia's perfect by any means. It just means that their political structure is mostly consolidated as being anti-cabal, and probably the most captured influence are the ultra-nationalists in Russia. That's what people don't understand. It's probably not the liberal elements, which since the war are gone in the country. Okay. America, pretty straightforward, right? You've had Trump and you've had the Uni Party. So we don't have to diagnose that. Everybody knows this dynamic in the United States. This is why when we have these conversations with you against, Europeans, like Trump's taking Greenland, the European right gets really butthurt. It's like, guys, I understand your pride. First off, though, you have to admit you lack the capabilities. So that's a rallying cry for you. But secondly, I mean, and this is the really big thing, right? Is that we are doing it because your governments are our enemies. The same government that's oppressing you is oppressing us. I want to show you something real here. This is a very interesting comment. The great and very brave soldiers of the United Kingdom will always be with the United States of America. In Afghanistan, 457 died, many were badly injured, and they were among the greatest of all warriors. It's a bond too strong to ever be broken. The UK military, with tremendous heart and soul, is second to none except the USA. We love you all and always will. President Donald J. Trump. You know what that tells me? That tells me if America sends in the military to deal with domestic threat, that the British military, it's going to be very near for the British military to do a coup against Starmer. Now, I'm not saying that with full certainty, but I'm saying if you read that signal correctly, what he's saying is that the UK military is under our control, is what he's saying. That's what he's saying. The United Kingdom's military is under American control. It's not under control of the British government at the end of the day. So don't bother trying to oppose the United States, because the UK military is not going to oppose the United States. Very interesting. Now, again, to stay on the topic of these dual influences going on in the countries, obviously, if you had somebody, get someone like Le Pen in France, if you had AFD in Germany, maybe, right? Maybe, I say maybe, I'm not like super psyched about them. It's kind of interesting leadership, but we'll take what we can get, right? Take what we can get in this fight. What I'm trying to say here is that we can't look at these countries as being monoliths. Europe is very captured, Western Europe at least, very, very captured. America was split. Trump's now an ascendance, right? Russia is very not captured. But what about China? So it has been a contention for a long time that China actually is very split. China is and historically this has always been the case. China is a very, very difficult country to parse what exactly is going on internally in China's politics. Okay? And I got to tell you guys, this is very interesting timing. You see China's interests. You can view this through two lenses, okay? This is a Scott Adams thing, right? The two different filters, right? Through one lens, you could view it like this. China is trying to overcome the United States and they had interest in Greenland, they had interest in Venezuela, and they're basically our enemy. They're trying to do agreements with Canada and Europe, right? And this coup attempt against Xi is the result of China's deteriorating position against an aggressive America that is trying to assert its interests to collapse China before China has a chance to surpass America economically. Okay? And that's a reasonable thesis. But it's worth considering, I think, another part of this, which is that Xi and Trump, that there is a deep state in China too that's connected to the European deep state. Because remember that they sold out a lot of the industrialization to China. Now, China, I'm not saying that there's a singular motive. I think China's a legitimate geopolitical rival. But I don't think that China's an enemy. I don't 100% buy when I look at all these accounts that are posting about this Chinese coup, I just don't, they've lied about China. There's been a lot of lies about China, right? The social credit system stuff, that's not true. It's not true. A lot of people have been to China. It's not true. Okay. It's actually a projection, considering that's what they wanted to do in Western countries. So what I'm getting at here is the timing of this stuff is very interesting, because I could also view this coup attempt because China has not been retaliating against the United States and it's been getting some things in return, right? As I mentioned, Venezuela's government gets overthrown, but in the new oil agreement, the new agreement for the reindustrialization of Venezuela, China was involved with it. So is it possible, sake of argument here, let's think about this. Is it possible that Xi and Trump were working together on some level to destroy the European cabal, and this was inevitably, however, going to lead to some of the more aggressive elements in the CCP that were backed by Europe getting harmed? But Xi's doing it to destroy his internal. So there's like an agreement, like China's going to have its sphere of influence, and we're going to starve and destroy his domestic enemies, which are connected to the cabal. And so Xi and Putin and Trump are working together in that sense. But so, because the timing is really interesting, right? Why are they trying to overthrow Xi when Canada and Europe are both trying desperately to get China involved to save their asses? There's a coup attempt in China. This is what I'm trying to say to you guys, like to make it much more clear and simple. You have a situation where Europe is trying to pull China in as a buttress against America, which it's not doing. And then there's a coup attempt in China. Just find it very interesting. So I don't necessarily buy the narratives that I'm seeing. I'm gonna have to do more research. This is in real time, right? But I'm not convinced that Xi is the enemy. I'm not convinced. China is a very complicated country. I've mentioned before that my professor at Penn was the one who figured out even what was going on during the interwar period in China. It was so opaque, so complicated then. Nobody knew, like the different warlords. Nothing's really changed. It's just that they're all under the CCP structure. You don't know what's going on, but we do know that there's been a move made. Okay. So, let's see what else I got here. Let's see what else I got here. So, this is something that I was talking about that went a little bit viral, but people are asking why there's not more arrests in Minnesota. The reason there aren't more arrests in Minnesota is because Grassley is refusing to allow Trump to bring in assistant attorney generals across the country. Okay? 75% of every appointment for all the districts, all the judicial districts in the United States, 75% of those are not filled. After 1 year in office, 75% are not filled because the blue slip rule. Blue slip rule says that if a state has a split, Democrat, Republican, it's out of respect. Both senators have to agree on it. So if the blue senator doesn't agree on it, they don't move forward with it. There's nothing constitutional about it. It's all a bunch of fucking bullshit. And so everybody's hating Grassley for it. Now, I'll be honest, I'm very inclined to hate Grassley for it too. And I'm going to throw this out only for the sake of throwing it out there. I don't actually believe it. I don't believe it. But let me just throw it out there. Why not? Okay. One of the people that Q said the trust was Grassley. Trust Grassley, right? Q also said the trust, what's his face from Alabama, Sessions, Durham. These are all things that didn't pan out. Which is interesting. Q said disinformation is necessary. Is most of Q disinformation? Is most of that stuff. Some people would find that funny and true. But what I'll say is this: sake of argument, trust Grassley. What if Grassley is holding these up so that things have to go to the military? I know Grassley I think he was involved with some of the Senate Intelligence Committee stuff. And I can be corrected if I'm wrong on this, because I very well could be, that he helped facilitate some of the investigations into the January 6th related stuff. Of course, nothing's really come of it, so I don't really take that as like a big badge of honor. But what I'm trying to say here is just, that's a theory. I could throw that theory out there. It's not backed by anything. It's not backed by anything but a Q post, which makes me think it's not true. Because it's one of those things like let me say this also. I love Tom Luongo. I think he's so on point with things. But it's a little bit hard at this point, isn't it, to say that Jerome Powell at the Fed is working with Trump. It's a little hard to say that Trump and JP Morgan are working together because he's suing JP Morgan for money for being debanked, which by the way, I was debanked too, so maybe I should sue PNC. Maybe I will. But Jerome Powell is under investigation, criminal investigation. There's kayfabe, right? There's political theater. And there is one thing to be shouting at each other and creating a scene. It's another thing to start leveling indictments on each other, lawsuits. It's another thing to be blocking political appointments. I don't think that Trump likes even if it was going to go to the military, I don't think Trump likes having 75% of his judicial appointees not being able to be appointed. Especially because we know so much of it has to do also with Grassley and the corn subsidies, et cetera, et cetera. So my inclination is not to trust Grassley, but maybe there's some 5D chess going on here. I don't know, guys. I'm not. Tell me what you guys think in the comments right now. This is also interesting. It's suspicious that there hasn't been a huge crackdown on CCP spies in American universities intact, probably tacitly allowed to stay. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it. All I know is this. Democrats let people on the border, 10 to 30 million people, every day for 4 years after losing an election, launched an armed insurrection to stop the federal government from reversing the invasion. That's it. So when we go back to this whole thing, big picture, what are we doing? We're fighting a group that's trying to destroy the country. That's what we're doing. So you have to stop thinking in terms of politics and start thinking in terms of war. That's the final message I want to impart here. There are too many people who are watching what Trump is doing, how he's behaving, the actions he's taking. And believe me, we're just getting started. Next COVID cabal, first planet moves into Aries. I think it's Saturn moves to Aries. By mid-February, Neptune does too. Neptune's in Aries until the mid-2030s. Okay? I want you guys to understand something here. If you're viewing things through politics anymore, well, how's this going to look with the midterms? And the polls say, fuck your fucking polls. Like, go fuck yourself. Go fuck off. Garbage in, garbage out. They've been stealing elections since 2000, minimum. They've been doing that scale since 2000. 2004, we got the voting machines. We got red states and blue states. Talked about this in my essay, The American Soul. Okay? We have no reliable elections in this country. None. So when you talk about polls, you're talking about nothing that matters. Polls have been used to preset election results that will be stolen. They're not reliable. To the extent that they're reliable for the wrong reasons. And it doesn't matter anyway, because wars are what win situations. We are in a war. If you're afraid to enforce the law because the opposite party is actually hosting an insurrection, they're involved in massive criminal activity, you're afraid to arrest them because of it, then you do not have what it takes to fix anything. I care about fixing things. I do not care about elections. I did care about elections, and then the election was stolen, and I saw what the consequences were. Okay? Stolen elections have consequences. You cannot make the Trump administration that is trying to save this country, you cannot hold them to a political standard when the politics are manipulated. The only reason we are hearing anything about this individual who was shot by ICE is because you have a hostile insurrectionist media in the country. That's the only reason the framing is remotely the way it is. So everybody needs to understand. Well, I don't. People are not liking what's happening. Just fuck off. We're not doing that anymore. We're in a war. We've been invaded. There are hostile actors pretending to be a political opposition when they are actually opposite the survival of this entire country. They want you dead. To paraphrase Sam Hyde, they want you and your kids dead, and they think it's funny. They do. They absolutely think it's funny. They want it. They laughed about it. I know it firsthand because they laughed about me with it. So understand what time it is. We're not in politics anymore. Politics are over. Politics as you knew it were over. They're over. Because how are you supposed to have you politics are how people on the same team decide how to negotiate differences in a peaceful manner. We're not dealing with peaceful people who want to negotiate in good faith. We're dealing with people who hate you and want you dead. They killed Charlie Kirk. They'll kill you. They'll kill me. They would love to kill any of us if they felt they had impunity to do so. The only thing that stops them from doing it is fear. In desperation makes them less afraid. They're going to get more aggressive. They're going to get more violent. Been telling you guys this for a while. Stiffen your spine and stay the course. That's how we win. We win simply by gaining control of our will, understanding what must be done and seeing it through. That's it. Everything else, every other thing is just cope. If you can't do that, you're not a man. I don't expect any woman to do this, but there's a lot of women who have a lot bigger spine than a lot of the men out there today. I'll say that. But I expect a lot of women to get, weak-kneed over this kind of stuff, and I don't give a fuck. But if you're a man, you're a faggot if you act like that. Fuck off. We're gonna finish this job. We have an administration of men. We're gonna do what has to be done. Amen. God bless. I'll see you guys next week. COVID Cabal. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.